Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman. Here as always with Tom Orr. We are live. Fortunately, only a couple of people have seen this so far. So Tom, how's it going?
Tony, it's going great. You've gotten the podcast name right eventually. We haven't been attacked by any alligators yet. So, I mean, so far, so good.
Well, that's why I'm a little off my game right now, because we are recording next to a lagoon where it says "Do not feed the alligators or the snakes." And right before we went live, there was an iguana fight in the trees, about 25 feet from us. So I'm a little emotional right now. Quite frankly, I'm semi-terrified, but the show must go on because the game is happening tomorrow. The game, of course, Tom, that I'm referring to, Ohio State against Alabama for the college football playoff national championship. Tom, feeling pretty good about the Buckeyes' chances?
Well, we released our staff picks, and so anyone who has read them knows how we feel about the Buckeyes' chances, which are not 0, but probably not quite 50%. So I guess that's okay.
None of us has Ohio State being blown out, so certainly Ohio State's chances, they have a very good chance to win this game, Tom. In fact, some would say they are favored.
Don't any of those people live in Las Vegas?
So here we are. This is our first YouTube Live of the championship game. So I know people have been asking for it, so here it is. We are in lovely Miami, Florida, as if you couldn't tell. And, of course, my story about being terrified of iguanas and alligators. But there is more to talk about, Tom. Specifically, this will be the best offense and defense that Ohio State has faced this year. This will be the best. Will this be the best offense or defense that Alabama has played this year?
I think there's an argument to be made that this will be one of the best, maybe not the best. I think you could make an argument for Florida being a better offense than Ohio State.
That's why I stopped myself.
Yeah, if Florida is a sort of full availability, full complement of players, I think there's a very good argument to be made that Florida is at least as good, if not better, than Ohio State's offense. That's not a slight on Ohio State's offense. Ohio State's offense is quite good. Florida's offense also quite good. This is the best all-around team that Alabama has played this year.
Okay.
I think that's fair. I don't know that this is either the best offense or best defense that they've played, but as an entire all-around package, Ohio State, I think, is pretty clearly a better team than Florida was, pretty clearly a better team than Georgia was, pretty clearly a better team than Texas A&M, anyone else they would have played in the SEC. So, yeah, this is going to be. I mean, that's how it's supposed to be. If it's a national championship game, it's supposed to be the best two teams in the country. So that means this should be the best team you're playing all year.
Yeah, the first or second best offense, and maybe the second or third best defense. If we're going to give Georgia that credit, which, yeah, sure, go ahead, take it, Georgia. You can have that credit. So yeah, I think you make a good point. The best team overall that the Buckeyes will face, or that the Alabama will face. I guess where do we start with the ways that Ohio State can pressure or take advantage of the Alabama defense? Because we don't know how healthy Justin Fields is. We assume he's good enough to play. But like, I had somebody ask me, like, yeah, but where would you put him on a scale of 1 to 100? And I was like, and this was a couple days ago. I said, I don't know, 85%. And Tom, before you answer that, we are close to being attacked by a black duck. And so this is a new one for the show as well. I almost feel like we need the iguanas to come take out this duck.
You bring the iguanas to get the duck, then you bring in the snakes to get the iguanas, then you bring the alligators to get the snakes, and you bring in the crocodiles to get the alligators, and the sharks to get the crocodiles.
Did you bring the French fries?
And eventually we have a shark problem on the patio. Right. So I'm not sure I want to go down that particular path.
It looks like he has a sharp beak, Tom, and he's got talons. It's the first duck I've ever seen with talons. But I think he's okay. Go ahead, Tom. About my question, 85% is what I said. Where are you?
85% is probably about right, I guess. I think it's probably in that range where he's doing pretty well. He's doing well enough. The thumb, you haven't heard any concerns about the thumb, really. The thumb, I think, is a non-issue at this point. And then it's just, the ribs and all the other stuff. And I get the sense he's probably feeling completely fine now. My question is, okay, if he's at 85, 90, 95 right now, if he has a nose tackle land on his ribs, Where is he then? That's where my question is more with Justin Fields rather than pregame. It's second quarter, then what?
Exactly. What, like, if it's a video game, like, how far does his health go down? Like, the health bar go down if he gets one hit? And I think it just takes one hit. Now, it has to be the right hit, and he'll be doing his best to avoid that. And I think I said in one of the shows previously, like, even sliding down on runs, like, which, if he slides wrong, he could tweak himself. So that will be something to watch. I think he's good enough to run the ball, and I mean, he's good enough to play ping pong. He looked healthy there.
He did, yes.
And so he's moving around fine, and I think he'll be good. It's like you said, it's what happens with the wrong kind of hit, and you hope that he can play the entire game without dealing with any of that. That way you can get as full a strength of Ohio State as you can get. But of course, this being 2020, there is no such thing as a full strength Ohio State.
Can we get you a new calendar?
This 2020 season, Tom, the 2020 season,
Okay.
because they are still vying for the 2020 season championship, even though it is the 2021 College Football Playoff National Championship. It is still the overarching 2020 season,
Okay.
and there is still the entire COVID thing that has really just attacked this team in terms of just it's every single week there is two more guys, or this guy, or they got this guy back, but will he be 100%? And it's been something that the coaches have dealt with all season long, and now you're to this point where you don't have to deal with it anymore after this. And I'm sure everybody at this point, when there's talk about Ohio State, seeing can they get the game pushed back, I'm sure there's also a point of guys being like, let's just play this game. let's just get this season done with, knowing that Ohio State is still plenty talented to win this, regardless of who is out.
Right, and this is an Ohio State team that, even at not quite full strength, is potentially good enough on their best day, or anything close to their best day, to potentially beat Alabama, even with one hand tied behind their back, like they may be forced to play with on Monday. This is one of the most most talented teams in the country. I think it's very easy to fall into the trap of making this a David versus Goliath thing. It's not a David versus Goliath. These are two of the most tightly watched or most talented teams in the whole country. There are three programs right now in college football that go into every season with a legitimate chance of winning the national championship. Two of them are playing here. Ohio State just beat the other one. Georgia has the talent, but Georgia has all sorts of other issues that they can't get together. So this is not David and Goliath. This is Goliath and a Goliath with maybe a few COVID issues. So I think this is a lot like the Clemson game. I went into the Clemson game thinking not quite a coin toss, but pretty close as far as Ohio State's chances, and I'm right about there on this one as well. So I think I've seen a lot of advanced analytics that had Ohio State with like a 40% chance to win. That feels about right.
Yeah, I want to address what Ari posted here, saying that Columbus media is so scared to name names, they're scared of getting their credentials pulled. The thing is, like, we have heard names, and then this week some of those names showed up. So until the game actually takes place, or a parent tweets out or a player tweets out that they are not playing, we can say, hey, we've heard this guy has COVID, don't expect him to play, and then they show up.
Right. Okay, here's the name. Mayan Williams. Mayan Williams is not here. I can tell you that because Mayan Williams has said he's not here. Okay? Mayan Williams isn't here. We were told Antoine Jackson was not going to be here. And then when the buses pulled up at the hotel last night, Antoine Jackson got off the bus. So read into that whatever you will. So, and I think I don't know that necessarily means Antoine Jackson is going to play. I think that it's quite possible he plays, but that's not the fact that he got off a bus last night does not guarantee that he's playing in the game on Monday. So there are a bunch of issues. I'm sure we're going to see the is Tommy Togiai playing question. Friends, we'll all find out together tomorrow. It'll be great.
Yeah, and we should get the availability like an hour and a half, hour before kickoff on Monday. So that will be posted at BuckeyeScoop.com immediately upon its release, and then we will we'll know who's playing, who's not from that point, and not a moment sooner.
And Vinay wants to know if Justin's ribs are good. Vinay should have tuned in 3 minutes ago. But, yes. But,
I will say, well, we have not had them. We're going to check out Mama Lucy's.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that'll be, yeah. Is that what we're doing tonight? I don't know.
No, tomorrow. I don't know. Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Lunch?
We'll get a quick plug in before we get too far into the show as far as what we're planning on for tomorrow. We're planning on a morning live stream because I have been in a Columbus office on the day of an Ohio State National Championship game. I know exactly what the level of productivity is in a Columbus office building on the morning of an Ohio State National Championship game. That level of productivity is 0.0. So you're probably going to be looking for something to watch tomorrow morning while you were sitting at your desk, pretending to be toggling through spreadsheets or whatever you do for a living. We will have a Monday morning live stream, probably late morning, 10, 10:30, 11. We'll sort of figure it out, and then we're going to be over at the stadium early to mid afternoon again while you are still at work, because we are trying to get you through your workday.
Right.
This is what we are trying to do to get you through your workday. We've all been there. We all know the level of productivity on first day of NCAA tournament day at a workplace. This is going to be the same thing. So we will we'll have a couple live streams morning, afternoon to kind of try and help you out. Oh man, SV Argyle says, "Who are these guys? Not enough background noise. Must be on the wrong live stream." We have really gone away from our roots. We almost set up over by a loud air conditioning vent.
We could have done that.
We almost set up where we are on the far side of the hotel, so we're blocked from the highway noise. There were jet skis over here earlier when we were. And oh, by the way, our hotel's right by the airport, so you can probably hear airplanes every once in a while.
Plus,
we're doing our very best, and again, we haven't gotten to the alligator attack portion of the show yet.
Exactly.
So
you don't do that in the first 10 minutes.
No, you gotta hold them.
Right. But Tom, tell people that they should subscribe.
Oh yes, that is a very important point. We have a vague idea for what we're planning on doing on Monday. However, we don't know exact times because our schedule is going to be a little bit in flux tomorrow, and it's going to depend on when we can actually get in and all that kind of stuff into the stadium. So best thing to do is click the subscribe button on the it should be right there, maybe the subscribe button for the channel, not on your shirt. I like that you're looking on your shirt like you spilled it at lunch. No, he did not spill a subscribe button on his shirt. But yeah, click on the subscribe button at youtube.com/BuckeyeScoop, and then you'll get a little pop-up notification on your phone when we go live. So that way you don't have to be sitting refreshing Twitter waiting for it.
Tom, I was thinking you mentioned March Madness, and you know how that is the one time a year more than any other time of the year when men schedule their vasectomy so that they can just stay home. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow, if you're not doing anything and you don't want to go to work, go get a vasectomy, stay home, and then watch the show.
I think that typically requires a little bit more pre-planning than just on a whim go in.
No, you can watch a YouTube video.
Yeah?
Yeah. If you've got a butter knife and some
bag of frozen peas. Very important.
Right, and some plastic ties. I don't know. And then, but anyway, Tom, do you think Ohio State, let me give you an over-under on rushing yards because we all love this, against Alabama tomorrow night, 179 and a half. That feels like you should go over.
It does feel like I should go over, and I feel like I'm going to go over. If they get too far over, I think I'm probably going to go over that unless they get way behind early.
Yeah.
I think they're going over that.
Tom.
It's possible. I mean, if this game's 21-3 Alabama in the second quarter, they're not going over that. If this game's close, it's possible for them to lose with that many rushing yards. But
I agree.
What is the number of rushing yards you would have to see to say I am 90 to 95% confident Ohio State?
265.
I was going to say about 250. That's about right. I think that's about where if you see Ohio State with 250 yards, because that means if they've rushed for 250, they've probably also thrown for 250. Mm-hmm. And if you're at the 250, you've shown good balance, you've controlled the ball, you've kept Alabama's offense off the field. I mean, this is one of these things where you keep seeing people picking scores in the losing team has 42 points. It's like, I think both teams might run it enough that it keeps that score a little lower, keep that clock moving, have a few more of those 3, 4, 5, 6 minute drives as opposed to 2 plays, 85 yards, 37 seconds.
Do we want to say what we predicted as our scores since the staff picks are out now?
The staff picks are out. My pick was Ohio State falling to Alabama. Alabama 38, Ohio State 35. Tony wanted to pick the exact same score, and when he saw my score, he had to change his pick because he didn't want to be following me.
I threw a can of Diet Coke across the room, smashed it up against the wall, and I went 37-35 Alabama. I'm thinking, and this is my prediction, and it's a terrible prediction, freshman kicker
Jake Seibert.
Seibert misses like a 46-yarder at the gun because we saw Blake Hallbill. His house is growing doing. Is he a little tweaked? He was a little bit last week, 2 weeks ago against Clemson. So I'm thinking you put it all on the freshman kicker, and that's too much to put on a kicker, Tom.
That's a
Ryan
lot.
Day should not have done this.
That's a lot to put on anyone. I do like your.
No, Blake Hallbill is not out.
Yeah, we again, like, that's not. His
There's
status has been a little
Yeah.
bit like iffy the last couple weeks, and he was there, and then he wasn't, and he was back, and then he wasn't. So
Right. I'm just
that's
cutting out the middleman. I'm going straight to the freshman.
yes. So that's we'll see exactly how that all plays out tomorrow. But I do think if there's any question with Hallbill, I think you're going to see that manifest in Ryan Day's play calling. You know, if you go into a game knowing you don't have an answer, and I see all the questions popping up. We will get to all of the questions coming up. We're going to give some initial thoughts, and then we'll do a whole bunch of questions from you guys. So hang in there. I think if you go into a game knowing, hey, kicking is at least a question mark, that changes your mindset a little bit, because then you can go in with the 4-down mindset. You know, if you're across the 50, you're going on 4th down almost no matter what. You know, now if you're down 2 points and you're trying to line up for a game-winning field goal, okay, you're going to kick then in some circumstances. But you know, second quarter, 4th and 2 at the Alabama 20, you're probably going for it, and that changes how you call plays on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd downs too.
Yeah, and really, if you get stopped on the Alabama 40, there's not much difference between giving Alabama 60 yards to go and, say, 85. So don't even give them the opportunity. Just try to keep the ball as long as you can.
What would Mike Vrabel say about that?
Mike Vrabel would say, if you have an opportunity to punt, you have to punt. Do not waste those punting opportunities, because when you do, you don't get to punt.
But you do get to play a bunch of golf because your season's over.
Well, I mean, golf is fun.
We will have. I did see someone just ask just now if Jalen Waddle's going to play, Alabama wide receiver. That was something that Nick Saban addressed during his press conference this morning. We had Nick Saban and Ryan Day for about half an hour this morning. Saban said he's still kind of a game time decision. My sense is probably not. You know, if you're asking me, does he have 0 catches or more than 0 catches? My guess would be 0 catches. Does he play? Maybe he's out there for a few plays as a decoy. Maybe this is all kind of a big, long decoy to give Ohio State one more thing to worry about this week. I don't get the sense that he's probably playing.
Remember when Dontre Wilson got to play in 2014, even though like he was hurt, it was like kind of a reward for coming back, and after the injury against, I think, Michigan State that year. And so maybe they do the same thing with Jalen Waddle, and if it turns out he can do something for the team, that's great. But this is also maybe just a little, nice job, go get him, champ. And then if you can't get open, then it's like, well, somebody else go get him, champ.
Right, and it's not like Alabama has a real shortage of talent at wide receiver. They don't have the wide receiver room they had last year, but they still have a good wide receiver room now. And this is a conversation I think I had with Ross Fulton at one point this week, which was, it's ludicrous to say this, but the Alabama wide receiver room this year, which has the runaway Heisman Trophy winner, was probably the second most talented wide receiver in that room, is probably not as talented as the wide receiver room that they had last year, because that guy was probably the 4th best wide receiver on the team last year when they had Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs and all those guys. So, yeah, it is not a there is never a shortage of talent for Alabama. This is a little bit like what Ohio State has, where you talk about, hey, Ohio State's had these guys out all year. They had 3 offensive linemen out for 1 year. It's like, well, okay, they'll just have to throw a bunch of other top 100 overall prospects in and plow forward. This is why you have depth. This is why these two teams are here, because these two teams are 2 of the very few that have this level of depth to get through this kind of a season, especially.
And Ohio State has still been struggling to keep that depth where they need it, but it has been good enough, and they will be tested in this one, in the secondary, which, to me, Tom, I know games are won in the trenches. But the Ohio State secondary, if they can do what they did last week, 2 weeks ago, and just tackle, because Devontae Smith is going to have so many quick 2-yard, 3-yard, behind the line of scrimmage catches. If Sean Wade, Seven Banks, Marcus Williamson, Josh Proctor, Lathan Ransom, if those guys tackle him and limit him to 8 catches for 100 yards, where I still expect him to get a long one in there, 40 beyond, but if the majority of his catches are under 10 yards, that's a win. It's when he took one, little quick hitch against Notre Dame for, I don't know, it was like a 2-yard catch and 30 yards with it down the sideline.
Yep.
And that's where he's really, really dangerous. And he's just so quick, and he's fast, and he's wiry. And if they can tackle him, then that's every time they tackle him short of a first down, it's a win.
Right. Yeah, and that's it. Don't let 2 yards turn into 30. If 2 turns into 8, if 2 turns into 10, even if 2 turns into 12, you can kind of live with that. That's like giving up the 10-yard out. That has been kind of Ohio State's philosophy, and I think that's how Ohio State's going to play it. You play a couple safeties back, do what they did against Clemson. Don't let Clemson, Clemson can pile up passing yards all day. Trevor Lawrence had 400 yards passing. If those drives don't end up in the end zone, that's fine. Every time Alabama kicks a field goal, it's a win for Ohio State. If this game is 12-7 Alabama in the second quarter, that's good news for Ohio State if that's 4 Alabama field goals. If they're keeping Alabama out of every time they keep Alabama out of the end zone, that's a win. This then goes back to Ohio State has to score touchdowns. If as we're saying, you're going in with the 4-down mindset, you gotta. If you're not kicking field goals, you better be kicking PATs.
Well, and I have Alabama kicking 3 field goals in my prediction, and still winning, Tom, to prove you wrong. But it does create this thing where we both agree Nick Saban is more likely to settle for a field goal than Ryan Day, which could provide an advantage for Ohio State because they are going to take more shots on 4th down than maybe Alabama will, because they will be forced to, on one hand, because you don't know the condition of Blake Haubeil, who has been on again, off again, injured with the groin. And so I don't even know that you want to try him beyond 35 or 40 yards. And I don't know that you have faith or trust at this point in any of their other kickers as well. So then at this point, the only thing you're kicking is extra points and a potential game winner, I would think. For the most part.
Yeah, and kickoffs. I mean,
yeah.
I mean,
you just throw it like grade school.
Yeah, just call 500 and just heave it. Yeah, that actually sounds like a great idea. Yeah, this is. I mean, again, this is a game where you can go in with the mindset. Okay, if you go in with the mindset, we are not going to kick. That changes everything about the whole game. So it's not a guarantee of success. But with the way the Ohio State offensive line is, and with as much as Teague, as well as Teague has been running the ball, I mean, you are hearing people, and I have been guilty of it as well, starting to throw out the end of 2014 Ezekiel Elliott comps. I mean, and that's not quite up there with comparing an Ohio State offensive lineman to Orlando Pace, but it's like that's like the that is the top shelf Ohio State running back comp, really. And you're hearing people make this comps, and it's like, yeah, okay. And if they can go in where they know they have 4 plays, and you can lean on him, he doesn't need to run for 50 yards.
You're okay.
He doesn't need to run for 50 yards a pop. He needs to be averaging 6 yards a carry. If he's averaging 5.5 yards a carry, there's the noise we've been missing.
Thank you.
If he's averaging 5.5 yards a carry, that lets you keep that Alabama offense on the sideline.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think you're right with that. At this point, I don't. Again, as we were saying with Clemson, I feel like the Ohio State running game isn't going to be shut down because I don't know that it can be because the talent is so good and the threat of the pass is so good, and the balance is all there. And now, Tom, I give you over under Trey Sermon 1. I'll start with a 1. 38.5.
If Trey Sermon is at 138.5, I mean, I think that's probably about right. If he's significantly over 138.5, Ohio State's probably winning this game. because you got to figure Fields is going to get 50, 60. So 138.5 is about where I would have put it, because I think earlier you said 180 something for both, for the team on the whole. So if you have Sermon at 138, Fields at 50, that feels about right. Maybe a little over. If it's Sermon at 150, Fields at 50, and then you throw in a Garrett Wilson end around or a Julian Fleming something, or something like that.
Somebody was asking about Master Teague. I believe he's going to be, he should be ready. Hopefully, we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
We know Mayan Williams is out, so it just depends on how far down that depth chart you can get. Steel Chambers would be
Steel Chambers
next.
is probably
Marcus Crowley.
third. Yeah, Crowley. I don't think we've seen Crowley on offense much in the last. Really all year, have we?
Yeah.
Yeah. He had I think a little bit of a slower than expected recovery from that knee injury against Maryland last year. Chambers looked really good in limited action and then couldn't hang on to the football, and you can look as good as you want, and if you can't hang on to the football,
yeah, and you don't get the football anymore if you can't hold on to it.
Then you get to go play linebacker. You want to start doing a few
Yes,
listener questions?
let's do it,
all right, we are starting to scroll
before we lose them all and have to start all over.
The questions
Go Browns,
right now.
Tom.
Go Browns. That's fine. I'm fine with me. Let's see. Yes, Jeremy says all Buckeye fans have been thoroughly scanning Instagram videos from various Buckeyes in Miami to see if Tommy is there. Yeah, he is the Bigfoot of. Jeremy says need Justin to be able to run and have Bama respect QB runs. I don't know how much they can. I don't know how much they can do that. I don't think they want to do that a ton, but I think he's got to keep one periodically to keep them from crashing too much.
Right. Even if it's like a short side keeper, that way he can get to the boundary and just go out of bounds or something like that.
Yeah.
Last week against Clemson, I say last week, just realize last time out against Clemson, last week, 2 weeks ago, whatever. We said 40 carries between Trey Sermon and Justin Fields was the magic number, like the sweet spot. They had 39, and or was it 50? I think it was 39.
It was 39.
So 40 was the magic number. If they get 240 again, I think that still has the same magic.
Yeah, no, I think for sure that goes. If they get to 40, especially with as little as Fields is probably carrying the ball, that probably means 30 something for Trey Sermon. If Trey Sermon has 30 something carries, they're probably winning that game.
You're looking at 170, 180 yards at the least almost.
Brad says Sermon goes for 165 plus Olave and Wilson both get a pick.
Probably means a touchdown.
Probably touchdown. Wade and Banks both have picks. And I saw a question earlier about Mac Jones, Alabama's quarterback, and how much he can run. This is not Trevor Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
This is a much more traditional pocket quarterback where you're okay. Like, he's fine. He can sort of avoid the rush, but he's not going to hurt you with his legs. He's not going to break off a 40-yard run, a 50-yard run like Trevor Lawrence did last year.
Defenders can be a little bit more careless coming after him, I think.
Yeah, I think that's true for sure, and that's a that changes a little bit how you can pass rush, because you're a little less concerned about
it's not so much
the guy
to contain.
Loose. Yeah,
you can just get after him. As Kirk,
there it is.
There it is.
All right, fantastic.
Perfect.
Loud air conditioner noise.
As Kirk Herbstreit would say, the defenders can just pin their ears back.
Yeah. So there was a question of whether the starting corner for Alabama is out or questionable.
Malachi
Moore is. I think he was the one who was very questionable when they were discussing it this morning.
He's their star.
He's one of he's one of their starting corners.
But in terms of the defensive, he's like a nickel kind of guy that
starts.
Yeah.
So he's that's the guy who's probably on your slot. So that's probably Garrett Wilson. So that's something to keep an eye on. Jeremy says the key is to rattle and pressure Mac Jones. Yeah. He's had all day to throw all season, and that's the question. Can they get to him? I think they can. The pass rush has been pretty good. Can you get to him? Can you pressure him with the front four? Mm-hmm. And how does he handle that pressure? Because, as the question said, he has not had to deal with a ton of that pressure in his face all year.
And I had an NFL scout say to me this week that he does not handle it well, and if they get to him, he will be rattled and he will become mortal. So if you don't want the immortal Mac Jones, get to him and he becomes suddenly killable.
Yeah. Michael says, "How is South Beach?" I wouldn't know. That's
south of us.
Yeah, it's south and east of us, much like you, I'm sure. Would I be wrong to think that both Sermon and Harris will each have 120 yards and 2 touchdowns tomorrow? I mean, I don't think that's crazy.
I don't think it's crazy. I think the craziest part of that is Sermon having 2 touchdowns. He doesn't score a lot.
Yakov says, even if OSU comes up short tomorrow, can we still call it an A+ season?
Yes.
You get to the national championship game. If they lose, unless they lose 56-3, it would be very hard to not say this has been a very successful season, especially given with all the stuff they've had to deal with.
Yeah, 2 teams got to this point, even though Ryan Day did say this morning that their goal was never to just get to the national championship. Their goal is to win a national championship. So they would view it, because he was pretty much asked the same question, like, is the season already a success? And the answer is yes, but you're not going to say that right now. You'll say that after you lose. Like, hey, we had a successful season, but next year we want to win it all.
Yakov wants to know if he should be concerned that Troney has been frolicking around South Florida beaches in a Speedo.
We should all be concerned.
Sean Wade. Concerns about Sean Wade?
I think you have concerns about anybody going against Devontae Smith, and that's, to me, I don't care who you are. You're gonna have a cornerback who is susceptible to giving up yards because this guy is the Heisman Trophy winner, and not that the Heisman Trophy winner is this end all be all, but he's a receiver who won the Heisman Trophy. That's not even allowed.
Right? Yeah, he has a lot more receiving yards than a typical Heisman Trophy winner who has 0. So, Tom says game time forecast is 69 and light winds, which is nice. I mean that. I have not been in that stadium before. I'm going to be interested to go in there and see how much it has. Like, it's built up and it has kind of those like covers, like those rain covers over the top. So I'm wondering if that is going to potentially limit some of the wind in there. That it maybe just keeps it from kind of coming in and swirling around. I'll be interested to see that. How does Vincent and Jackson compare to Togiai? The answer is they don't all play the same position. So
well, yes, it's Antoine Jackson will probably be, but even like Antoine Jackson could go back and forth. Teron Vincent is mostly the 3 tech, but obviously Togiai is better than they are. But also, the question isn't how good are they compared to Tommy Togiai. It's how good are they compared to the guys who would have played if they weren't here. You're talking Ty Hamilton, true freshman, Jaden McKenzie, redshirt freshman. Neither of these guys have really played this year. Jaden McKenzie has been hurt for much of his career. So you're not comparing them necessarily to a starter. You're comparing them to the guys who would have had to step up and be part of this rotation, in which case they are much, much better and veterans and much more equipped to handle what Alabama has to give them, as opposed to a 290-pound redshirt freshman, and who knows what Ty Hamilton is up to this year, 275 or something right now.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, with as much as Alabama has a pretty good offensive line, they're missing their starting center. That is a big concern for them. But if they can run the ball, then you're going to have to you need to be able to have some depth in the interior defensive line, because otherwise you run out of gas, and in the fourth quarter, the 5-6 yard gains turn into 15-20 yard gains, and it is however many people they can get at those 2 interior defensive line spots, the better. I mean, they have to have some depth there. You don't want to be playing freshmen. You don't want to throw in like converted offensive linemen over there unless you really need to. So, they have options. It is not, as with everything in 2020, nothing is ideal right now for anyone.
Tom, it's 2021.
Yes, we addressed that earlier. It's a 2020 season. So, it is a, nothing is ideal right now for this team, but they have enough pieces to just kind of make it work as best they can.
Tell Tim May to calm down. I will not, sir.
I don't know what Tim May did, but I've never heard Tim May not calm. Ever. People asking, what color Gatorade will it be?
Oh, that's a good question.
I mean, it's
green worked.
Green worked. Yeah, green created a nice context. I was very excited. I was on the photographer Zoom call. They do a pre-game meeting. I was very excited to hear them ask people to not get in the way of the shot of the Gatorade shots, because I had a great shot of Ryan getting dunked, and then there was an Ohio State team photographer who stepped right in front of it and was like, oh, well, I've got a great shot of your back with Gatorade splashing around someone who's in front of you. Who could that be? Who's to say?
Is that instructions so that the shot for Ohio State doesn't get blocked?
No, the instruction was for the team photographer should not get in the way. So,
gosh,
I can't wait for that to not happen.
But I mean, it would be an okay sacrifice for you to make, Tom, right?
I'm not getting arrested, as far as I know. Well, I say that, and then Jamie says, "Stop coughing before you get arrested."
Yes.
Sorry,
Mm-hmm.
we've been talking a lot today. Can't wait to be talked for 17 hours tomorrow.
It's gonna be a good day.
Brad says they would throw shoes before having orange Gatorade. Jet Mock wants to know, how is Fields going to get 50-plus yards with a busted rib cage? I don't think there's going to be. I mean, I don't get the sense that his ribs are in that bad of a shape. I think that maybe has been a little bit overstated.
Unless they broke over the week, like since the game.
Yeah, I mean, he the moment it happened, he played the rest of the game and was able to do stuff, and he has only gotten better since then.
Right.
So, I it's a concern.
Yes. No. Yeah.
And as we said earlier, I think the concern is, okay, he starts out 95% of whatever he would normally be. So when someone lands on him in the second quarter, then what is it? And that's the question. And that's probably a 15-yard penalty worth taking for Alabama.
I said the same thing on
yeah.
a Louisiana radio show the other day. It's like it's a pretty it's 15 yards. I think you'll get it back later on.
Yeah, and Vinay says Fields' ribs looked fine when he was playing ping pong last night. While everyone else was looking at the background of that video, yes, Justin Fields did look just fine.
Can't see the forest for the trees.
Travis wants to know, who will have an easier time stopping the run, Alabama defense or Ohio State defense?
Tom, I like Ohio State's run defense here against Najee Harris and Alabama. They throw the ball so well. They average like 185 yards, which is not a ton, but they also throw the ball a ton. They are second in the nation in passing yards, so that's where they get the bulk of their yards. But Najee Harris is like 6 yards a carry. It's not amazing. It's what you would expect from a very good college running back, consistent, but there's not a bunch of explosions to bump that 6 up to a 7 like we've seen with J.K. Dobbins or Ezekiel Elliott when they've had just these crazy numbers. And I believe Harris has rushed for 1,200 yards in 12 games. Mm-hmm. So he's just a consistent guy. But I think they can limit him. Who was the last guy to go off on an Ohio State run defense? Jonathan Taylor did it, but that was all that happened with Wisconsin.
Right.
And that was almost a fluke compared to how many times they've stopped Wisconsin's running backs before.
Well, and if you're just looking at these two teams, I think Ohio State has the more complete offensive line than Alabama because of that missing starting center. I'd put Najee Harris ahead of Trey Sermon probably, but you can at least have a conversation about that. And then the defensive lines are both very good. Ohio State's defensive line has maybe some more question marks than a typical game, but linebackers, Ohio State has a big advantage of linebackers. Ohio State's linebackers have been very, very, very good this year. Alabama's linebackers are they're fine. And when you say an Alabama position group is fine, it's like, wow, that's really going to stand out because all of them are excellent, and it's like, you're fine. So I think Ohio State probably can run the ball, and that is the path to victory for Ohio State, is run the ball. Pound it at them, control the clock, keep that Alabama offense on the sideline, control the pace of the game. That's how they do it. And I mean, we said earlier, 40% chance to win for Ohio State. That's where that 40% comes from. And maybe not all of it, but an awful lot of it. Carrick wants to know when the injury COVID report will come out.
Around 7-ish tomorrow night.
Yeah, that is typically about an hour to 2 hours before the kickoff of the game. We'll have that as soon as we get it, but that'll be probably an hour before the game. Brad wants to know Ohio State. No, Brad says Ohio State's number 1 in Power 5 in rushing, and they were number 2 in I think Power 5 rushing defense. So I mean that is about. I mean that's how they win. Yakov wants to know if we gained any insights from the exciting Saban and Dave press conference.
But we'll save that for tomorrow.
Vinay says, there's some questions that we can't answer here. Vinay says, please refer to the Buckeye Scoop Insider Board. That is a great piece of advice, Vinay. You can find that at buckeyescoop.com. Become a member. Boy, it's going to be an interesting day there tomorrow, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, man. The actual game thread will probably go up tonight.
Yeah.
Because Kirk usually starts them a day early to get everybody going, and it's going to be a lot of posts there and a lot of That's going to be a good scene.
Yeah. Rusty says thinks the Buckeyes can get to Mac Jones.
I agree.
I think that's if they can get to Mac Jones. I think then you can. That's when you get. We talked on the episode we dropped this morning of Buckeye Weekly. Ohio State. The odds that Ohio State wins by 14 points, and it was 16-1 or something like that. If you're going to get there, if you're going to get to the point where Ohio State wins by 2 touchdowns, it's Ohio State runs the ball well. It is Ohio State gets consistent pressure on Mac Jones. Mac Jones doesn't handle it well, throws, you get some turnovers, you get, empty possession, short fields for Ohio State. That's how you get to Ohio State wins that game by 2 touchdowns.
Some blitzes, some things like that, and then he starts to, see some ghosts.
Jetmax says OSU red zone offense, 100th in the nation, awful. I mean,
they were good last time.
They were fine against Clemson. They were, I think because
they listened to us, Tom.
Yeah.
Use the tight ends.
Mm-hmm.
Alabama struggles against the tight ends. Mm-hmm. So this time Alabama will be probably a little bit more prepared. Will it matter?
You would think. And again, the tight ends for Ohio State were very, very good against Clemson. The guys they're going to be matched up with, they're not, the Alabama linebackers are not up to the standard of the typical Alabama linebackers. That is something to keep an eye on. Vinay says put Justin Hilliard in the Sam linebacker to cover Harris. Utilize Barron as an extra edge rusher. I think that's very likely going to be what
again.
We have seen that already. I think you've seen that
like
again.
I've said for the last month, keep Justin Hilliard on the field as much as you can. It makes your defense better.
Z Money says, will Bama put Bryce Young in? If Bryce Young takes a snap, either something very, very good or very, very bad has happened for Ohio State.
What was the odds on that? I forget.
It was the odds that the two starting quarterbacks did not finish the game was like plus 500 or something. It was very, very likely that the 2 starting quarterbacks finish, but lots of questions about availability.
Fansided is not a real outlet. They report what other people report.
Yes. Carrick says, worried about Sean Wade because he had a hard time against Clemson. Sean Wade doesn't have to be perfect. Sean Wade can be, if Sean Wade's just like, okay. And it sounds like he's probably going to be on Devontae Smith. He wants to be on Devontae Smith.
He's calling for it. That's what he wants.
If he's on Devontae Smith, and he just, if Devontae Smith has 100 yards, that's probably good for Ohio State. You can't have Devontae Smith get 200 yards. You can't have Najee Harris.
Averaging like 130, 150 yards, something like that a game. So if you keep him under that, but again, Sean Wade has to tackle. He has to be more physical than he was against Clemson. Got pushed around a little bit a lot of it against Clemson from those guys, and he has to be the guy doing some pushing. Although maybe not in the 15-yard category where you pick up some penalties because you're trying to show that you are aggressive. You can be aggressive after the catch, or just don't give up the catch. That's my.
So, in your professional opinion,
yes, Tom.
Scott wants to know: does outcome of the game affect JT's decision? That's JT Tuimoloau, 5-star defensive lineman out of Sammamish, Washington. He is deciding between teams, including Ohio State and Alabama. The general rule of thumb in recruiting is no, one game does not decide a recruit's decision. That is a decision that's being made on a bunch of different factors, not just one game. Greenman says, no alligators, you must not be at Disney. There's a sign warning us to beware of alligators and snakes.
I'm going to believe it. I'm taking it seriously.
We have not yet seen one. It is a little, I think it's probably chilly enough that they're not quite as active as they would be normally. We're not swimming, though.
No, although the water is beautiful.
Diego says, I feel like if we're going to see Waddle, we would not have heard about it beforehand.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
I think that's a very likely.
That's why this has always felt a little smoke screenish.
Yeah.
Why talk about it?
Right, exactly. Go ahead and spring them on them as a surprise, rather than, coming out and just doing everything but like shooting off fireworks while you're talking about the fact that, well, we don't know, we'll see.
And granted, you may not be able to hold out the fact that he's practicing, but you can say, he's practicing, but there's no chance.
Yeah. JTO highlights says, I have a quick question. After the college football season, who do you think Justin Fields will get drafted by? Well, it sounds like Trevor Lawrence to the Jags and potential new head coach Urban Meyer. So number 2, I believe, is the Jets. I think there's a pretty good chance he's number 2 to the Jets. Because
we'll see how this game goes. I know. Last game impressed a lot of people.
Yeah.
And because the game before that, the Northwestern one, had him dropping, top 15, 20. Maybe the 3rd or 4th or 5th quarterback because of that one game, and then of course he does what he did against Clemson, and then you had people like, should Trevor Lawrence really be the number 1 pick? And I think maybe just don't go based off of one game.
Jetmax says if Bama can run, the game is over, and I mean that's maybe
OG
maybe
Buckeye
true.
says.
Yeah, if Ohio State can run, the game is over. I mean that's really. I mean, if one of those teams can run really, really well, then yes. If one team is running consistently all game, because if you can run really well, then the other team has to dedicate more resources to stopping that, and then the pass opens up. Because these defenses are kind of similar against the pass, where like they're the front line the defensive line is very good. Ohio State's linebackers are better. Alabama's corners are probably better. The safeties are a concern on both sides of the ball. If Alabama has to really, really bring the safety down to try and stop the run, you can take the top off that defense with Chris Olave, Jamison Williams. That's a, again, you want to talk about the ways Ohio State wins this game by 2 touchdowns. That's it. They run the ball. Alabama can't stop it without dedicating additional resources, and then that opens up stuff deep.
And I'll be posting a piece tonight from talking about the game will be won in the trenches. Haskell Garrett said that, and that's where the running game. Tom, is this like Michigan? Whoever runs for the most yards wins? I don't think it is, because both teams throw so well, and Alabama throws so well, and you've got Devontae Smith. I don't know that running for more yards is a great indicator unless it's Ohio State running for 300.
Yeah, and Yakov wants to know if there are any Clemson positional units besides quarterback that are better than Alabama's. Linebacker, maybe?
Maybe linebacker. That's about.
I mean,
maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think Clemson got exposed as not quite as good as people thought in a lot of areas, and you saw, the line didn't hold up, the offensive line didn't hold up, the defensive line didn't hold up. Safeties didn't hold up. I mean, and Alabama's pretty darn good most of the spots around the field.
Yeah, I think Clemson this was not I can't say it wasn't a very good Clemson team. It was just, there was a pretty dramatic difference in talent between Ohio State and Clemson.
Jeff says, my concern is Justin will not be a threat to run early. He's going to have to be. You can't have Fields.
Do you see what's happening without him first, though? I think you just go for it. You use them just to create as much ease as possible throughout the game. You show early that you're going to be able. You're going to try to run him. Maybe it's with the first snap of the game you have him keep on the read, assuming that that's the right read. I don't think you try to hide him unless you pull it out in the second or third quarter, like when Rocky switches to southpaw, something like that, where it's like, we've done well. But now let's add this next thing.
But now Justin Fields is going to throw left-handed. Game changer.
Protect the left side of his ribs by throwing left-handed.
We have picked up a whole bunch of new viewers since the last time we plugged this. I'm just going to let you know tomorrow, Monday, game day, there will be obviously, if you're sitting at your desk at work, you're not thinking about work. So we will be doing a pregame chat like this, live stream, youtube.com/BuckeyeScoop. On Monday morning. Then we'll be at the stadium early Monday afternoon, to give you another, hour or so of, just frown at the computer, rub your temples periodically, have a spreadsheet up there to kind of cover.
Reports.
Yeah, just look a little stressed, look a little irritated the whole time. We'll do our best to make you as irritated as we can to make that happen for you. But go ahead and hit the subscribe button on the Buckeye Scoop YouTube channel. That will have a little notification pop up when we go live. Then you'll be able to watch us tomorrow morning. Kill some time before the game, because I have a feeling everyone's going to be looking to kill some time.
I mean, this is going to be it's a Friday on a Monday, but like a Friday where there's like you have no intention of working, and there's no way you could even focus on work. So why?
Mitchell says, do you think OSU takes a different approach compared to Clemson, less deep shots and try to eat up more time, or still take deep shots? I mean, they're going to have to. That's a spot where Alabama's vulnerable. That is, there are not that many spots where they're vulnerable. Running is potentially one, if get into those linebackers with the tight ends, but those safeties, you can take the top off that defense. And Patrick Surtain is a very, very good corner. I don't know how much I'd throw at him, but he can't cover everyone.
Well, I'm still throwing to Chris Olave no matter who's on him. Ohio State has 3 very good deep threats at receiver, and we saw that against Clemson. And Jamison Williams has been underutilized in that regard. But there's areas to throw the ball deep with these guys, Garrett Wilson as well. I think you would be wasting their talents and Justin Fields' talents by not going deep against an Alabama defense which allows these sort of things. So if they're going to give it to you, like if they're practically begging Ohio State to throw deep because they don't want the Buckeyes running it down their throat.
Yakov said, should Urban just stay in Florida for his Wednesday or Thursday introductory presser with the Jaguars? Now, I mean, Jacksonville's like 6 hours from here, so that's a little bit of a haul. But
do you think it would be a private plane or would he drive?
Yeah, I have a feeling he's not standing on the line at Enterprise with us at the Miami airport. SV Archiles says, I mean, there have been a bunch of score predictions in here. I'm going to get your thoughts on this one. 22-16 Buckeyes.
Which quarter is this? At the half? Is this 22-16? So we're talking 5 field goals by the Buckeyes and 3 by Alabama. So, 6 scores by Ohio State and 4 by Alabama. Tom, is that so outrageous?
Yes.
Even if it was...
Even if that's the halftime score?
Even if those are all touchdowns. Like 6 scores against 4 scores. We're talking 42-28. Is that outrageous?
Yes.
You think a score of 42-28 is outrageous?
No, I don't think a score of 42-28 is outrageous.
That's what I'm saying. It's just 6 scores against 4 scores.
I have a feeling that they're going to get in the end zone once or twice. That is my thought.
Of course they can once, Tom. It's just the twice that may not happen.
WJW Willow, Bama has way more than Najee. Burab, Jace, etc. Najee has better numbers than the last 2 Bama Heisman backs. Did it all against SEC schedule, no tune-ups. Mind you how much we passed.
Well, that's why I it's hard for me to respect what he has done because it has only been a bit against the SEC, Tom.
It's true. I mean, you don't have the outside of the conference, matchup against like the Citadel.
You don't know what he's going to do against Charleston Southern, and so without that kind of knowledge, I can't say how good he is because we haven't seen it against a full Alabama schedule. Like, what does he do against Duke? We don't know.
And also, Alabama's backup center was a center a lot last year, not a new position for him. It seemed like there was a drop off, though, right? I mean, I'm not crazy. Yeah, it's. No one is saying Alabama's going to lose to Rutgers.
And again, we have both picked Alabama in this game.
Yes, worth mentioning. Yes, and as Chris points out, he did win the Remington Award. So therefore, definitionally, whoever he was replacing him, did not win the Remington Award.
What, is that like an award for that position or something?
Jetbag says they won't get to Mac Jones. Thinks Bama's offensive line is too good, much better than Clemson's offensive line. I mean,
Ohio State's defensive ends are playing their best ball of the year. Jonathan Cooper playing the best ball of his career. But yeah, I mean, this is the best test for both teams. It'll be interesting to see which of the tackles, the offensive tackles, win this game, win these matchups, because Ohio State has 2 very good offensive tackles as well who have been outstanding this year. Can Alabama create situations where Justin Fields is being pushed out of the pocket? We know Ohio State gives up like 3 sacks a game. 1 or 2 of those is generally attributed to Justin Fields holding the ball. 1 is a breakdown blocking, and then 1 is from the miscellaneous pile. But they've done a really good job of pass protecting, and we'll see which of the 4 offensive tackles is maybe the weakest link of this game.
Carrick wants to know who wins: Ohio State offensive line versus Alabama defensive line, Ohio State defensive line versus Alabama offensive line.
Well, we did this against Clemson, and it's like, well, if the games are won in the trenches, and we both, including Matt Connolly, who covers Clemson, all picked Ohio State on both sides in the trenches, and yet we all also picked Clemson because of Trevor Lawrence. So, Tom, let's talk this out. Ohio State's offensive line against Alabama's defensive line. I'm taking the Ohio State offensive line.
I think that's at least. Can I pick a push? Like, I feel like Ohio State's offensive line is going to be fine. I think Ohio State's offense. I don't think the defensive line is a weakness for Bama. I think the linebackers are a weakness for Bama. Okay. So if they can tie up, if they can just kind of have the trenches be a push, you're probably able to get, make your hay against the linebackers then.
Now the other side, the Alabama offensive line against the Ohio State defensive line, I'm feeling, even with the Alabama center situation, I'm going Alabama slight push, somewhere in there where I don't see the advantages for Ohio State that we saw against Clemson. Like the clear advantages are not there.
No, definitely. And I think you could say the Ohio State offensive line maybe pushed to a slight advantage Alabama offensive line may be pushed to a slight advantage. I think the lines are going to be pretty close, which is one of the reasons I picked a real close game, 3-point game. I mean, there's not a clear advantage in one of those spots. Now, there are places where I think teams have an advantage. I think the Ohio State safety spot, the Alabama safety spot, Alabama linebackers. I think these are things you can take advantage of, but if you don't have the advantage in the trenches, that's not quite as much of a no-brainer as it was before. W.J. Willow says, I think Alabama's biggest issue is Trey Sermon. The new style bend but don't break defense is rather opportunistic. We shall see. OSU will need a perfect game. Bama will need some self-imposed. I don't think Ohio State needs to be perfect.
No,
I don't think Ohio State needs to be anywhere close to perfect. I think Ohio State needs to be very good. I think these are two teams that are fairly evenly matched, and if we've learned anything, it's that if Alabama doesn't have a good game, it's because they didn't want to be there.
Right. I think if somebody plays a perfect game, they win by 3 or 4 touchdowns.
Well, yeah, and I think that there is a way that you have Alabama win by 14 points, Ohio State win by 14 points. I mean, I don't think that's crazy because it is a close enough game that if one plays particularly well, I mean, we just saw Alabama get run off the field by Clemson a couple of years ago. It's not like it hasn't happened.
Tom, let me ask you this. Remember against Wisconsin in 2014, you said the one thing that you cannot see happening is an Ohio State blowout.
Mm-hmm.
Remember against Clemson this year when you said the one thing that you cannot see is Ohio State blowing them out?
Mm-hmm.
What is the one thing that you cannot see in this game?
I mean, I don't see Ohio State winning this game by 30 points. I mean, we went through all the prop bets this morning with Ohio State winning by 43 or more, or Alabama winning by 43 or more. I don't think you've got a. This is not a 35-point win for someone. This is not 56-21. I don't see that happening really for either team. But again, Ohio State, there is a way Ohio State wins this game, and it's not right down to the last possible second, but it would take a lot, and I don't necessarily see all of that happening.
Ohio State 31 to 36 points. If they winning by 31 to 36 pays 50 to 1. So if you want to get in on that, Tom said Ohio State by 30.
W.J. Willow said, if the OSU team that played Indy or Northwestern shows up, Bama destroys them. If OSU plays the Clemson shows up, we have a game. I mean, it's incredible that people think that, well, if Ohio State plays perfectly, it could be competitive. This is not the best Alabama team of the Nick Saban era. This is not anywhere close to the greatest team in college football history. This is a very good Alabama offense. This is an Alabama defense that is not a great defense. This is an Alabama defense this is an Alabama team that could lose this game by 2 touchdowns, and people will be absolutely floored. And it's this is the issues are there. The issues are there on both teams. This is not the no-brainer that I mean, Alabama, Notre Dame. Go back and listen to our pregame shows for the Sugar Bowl, where we're talking about the fact that that game was over, but the moment it got scheduled, there were massive personnel mismatches there, and I think a lot of Alabama fans look at Ohio State and go, well, they're also from the North, and therefore they're Notre Dame. It's no,
right.
You look at the recruiting rankings, you look at the, you want to go through the blue chip index, no. There are 3 teams at the top, and then there's Georgia, and then there's everyone else. And this is one of the 3 teams at the top playing another one of the 3 teams at the top.
It's still just an 8.5-point line. So it's not like Ohio State is 17-point underdogs, and it's the upset of the century if they win, and they need to play a flawless game. These 2 teams are too good for the other to be flawless.
Lots of people working for the Dan Patrick Show telling us the game's going to be canceled. I have this strange feeling the game is actually going to play.
Maybe. What are we going to do tomorrow then?
I don't know. Well, we have time to go to the beach. Finally.
Didn't get dressed up for nothing.
Todd McShay has Justin Fields going 15th. I mean, I'm still waiting for Mitch Leidner to go first overall.
Yes.
Sometimes people just get jobs. Corey wants to know how much better is Bama's defense compared to Clemson's.
Like on what scale? I think they are better than Clemson's defense. I don't know how to quantify it. If Clemson's defense is a C, Alabama's A minus B plus.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's. I mean, Alabama this is a bad Alabama defense on the standards of Alabama
Yeah, right.
defenses. This is not a bad defense. It is a bad defense on the standard of Alabama defense, because you look at Alabama and you assume, well, it's a Nick Saban team. They must be lights out. This must be the 2011 defense. It's like, no, this is not the 2011 defense. They're fine. They're talented. It is very similar to the Ohio State defense, where it's like, this is not the 2019 Ohio State defense. They were a much better unit. Defense is fine. They are not the tire fire they were a little while ago. And you got to go back and look at why that is. Well, when they were a tire fire against Indiana, that was game 3 of the season. Like, yeah, guess what? In late September, you are not a finished product during a normal season.
Oh, is that right?
This is the same thing this year. Like, yeah, the third game of the season. And again, like, the game was 35-7 in the third quarter, and you could make a definite argument that Ohio State probably throttled down a little bit earlier.
Yeah, the Alabama defense holding 7 of their last 8 opponents to 17 points or less is fine, except they gave up a bunch of points to Florida very recently, and the 7 of those 8 opponents really have no offenses. So I don't know that you can draw much from that, other than when you compare Ohio State to the offenses that have scored against Alabama, the Buckeyes compare very favorably, no matter whether it was September or December.
Someone asked how the bugs are, and
That's not bad.
I just looked up at the sky, and it's like, oh, there's a whole swarm of them. How about
Right
that?
there.
How about that? Perfect.
Just stay right there.
And WJJ Willow, who's saying OSU should hope
Who's
to
that?
never see Najee. Najee's a clock grinder in the second half. If you see a lot of Najee in a huge hole. Here, let me just throw this out there. This is something that Ross Fulton from Buckeye Scoop mentioned. He watched the coaching clinic with Steve Sarkisian. Sark really wants to have big plays. Really wants to take those shots downfield. It reminds me a little bit of another game between Ohio State and Alabama, with a former USC head coach calling the plays for Alabama, where Alabama had a fantastic running back that all he had to do was give that running back the ball.
Right.
But they also had a really good wide receiver named Amari Cooper. And he just couldn't help himself. Couldn't help himself. I think Derek. Which running back was that? Was that Derek
Henry?
Henry? I believe it was Derek Henry. I think he finished that game with 12 carries, 13 carries. I mean, tell me that's not possible. That Sark gets a little aggressive, wants to show off. Look at all the recruiting graphics. Texas is putting out about how the explosive Alabama offense and how you should come play for Sark in Texas because of the explosive Alabama offense. Tell me that can't happen.
Over under Najee Harris carries in the second half, I'm going to say 12.5, Tom.
If Najee Harris hits the over there, Alabama's winning the game. If Najee Harris hits over 12 and a half carries in either half, Alabama's probably winning the game. I think that probably is, they are in run the clock mode if they're doing that. I think his inclination is going to be throw, and like that can work. It's not that the Ohio State pass defense is super fantastic, but if Najee Harris is running 25, 30 times, that's very bad news for Ohio State. Jetmac, Florida fan. Nope, not gonna make the SEC joke. OSU's longest field goal is 43 yards. I don't think Ohio State's planning on kicking a lot of field goals.
Yeah.
This is not a game where you're going to win the game with field goals. You gotta score touchdowns. Alabama knows, or Ohio State knows they've got to score touchdowns. Alabama probably knows they don't want to be kicking too many field goals, because Nick Saban is not going to tell you that. Nick Saban's not going to be going into this game thinking, well, if we just kick enough field goals, it'll be fun. Like,
No.
these are two good offenses that are going to be scoring touchdowns.
And your field goal kicking is no way to judge how good your offense is, unless you kick a lot of field goals. And you know what? Your offense could be better.
WJW Willow says 45-28 Bama. Just my thoughts. It's not crazy. That is not a ridiculous score prediction. I think Ohio State's going to get into the 30s. I think there's a very good chance both teams get into the 30s. I mean,
I could see 28 happening via loss of downs. You know, like going for it on 4th and 2 from the 5 and coming up empty a couple times in the red zone, that sort of way. Instead of, so you're very close to 42, but you end up with 28.
Yeah, Jeremy says, here's a good question. If Harry Miller's available, do you play him?
I like what they did last week. I think what you've got with Matt Jones, where if you could have something for 2 weeks in a row, 2 games in a row, go ahead. But one of the interesting things Josh Myers said this last week or so was they have been able to like come together and gel somehow, or they've learned to do it without that because of how disjointed the season has been. Usually the offensive line needs time. He's like, well, we've learned to not need that this year, which is an interesting thing just because of everything going on. You adapt, and this seems to be like one of those adaptations the offensive line has made where they don't necessarily need to be playing 4 weeks in a row together.
Well, and then the other question is, when did Harry Miller get back? Assuming Harry Miller's back at practice, did Harry Miller get back on the 3rd of January, or did Harry Miller get back on the 9th of January? Because those are two very different questions. I think there's a very clear, decent argument to be made that you keep Matt Jones in there as a starter. I mean, that's something they really need to think about. CJ Preach, will either defense score or special teams? That was one of the props we talked about this morning.
That was. I'm going to say no, they will not. But if you wanted to bet that, that was a yes plus 150, no minus 200. So you bet $10, you can win 15 if there's a defensive touchdown.
Or if you bet 10,000, you could win 15,000. Just saying, think about it. Much more profitable. Yakov wants to know what the area is like outside the stadium. We have not actually been over there yet.
No idea.
This is not like New Orleans where everything's like. I went for a run last week from our hotel and ran from the hotel into the French Quarter and then up to the stadium and then back, and it was like the whole run was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 miles, something like that. And this is the Media Hotel is downtown Miami. The Ohio State Hotel is kind of close to there. The stadium is like 20-something, 25-ish minutes north. Like, this is actually a little more similar to the setup for the Fiesta Bowl last year, where we were in Scottsdale, and then the game's in Glendale, which is like a 25-minute bus ride away. So we have not been over there. We will be over there tomorrow afternoon. We will have, I'll plug this again, we will have 2 live shows on Monday. We'll have a live show Monday morning. We will have kind of late morning. We'll have a live show from the stadium kind of early to mid-afternoon. We know you've got long work days. We know you will want to be thinking about football during those work days. We will get you through it.
We're going to try to be here for you.
So go to youtube.com/BuckeyesScoop to subscribe, and then get notified when we do the start going live with that. Jetmec says, if Notre Dame's tight ends didn't run wide open, put up crazy numbers on Bama, then Ohio State's won't either.
The thing is, Ohio State has better receivers. They have a better offense, so there are more things you have to concern yourself with.
Right. They have a more athletic quarterback. They have a better running back. They have better wide receivers. So, that then opens things up too.
Because we could also say, look what Florida did with Pitts and not that Jeremy Ruckert or Luke Farrell is that, but when you've got weapons and skill all over the place, the tight ends can be opened up if you look for them.
The Lee Smith channel says it must be nice to wear no sweaters at this time. You can wear no sweater wherever you are. That's even outdoors. Just Kerry Combs did it in Minnesota in 2014.
14 degrees.
Getting Even says, does Ohio State get a boost from special teams Monday? Maybe a block punt or a return for a touchdown. I mean, the last time they returned a kickoff for a touchdown was 2010. So I'm going to guess no on that. How many punts they force? How many opportunities do you have there? I mean, Alabama's special teams are pretty good. This is not the greatest Alabama special teams unit in the history of the program. They're fine. They're good.
And Tom, I don't think Ohio State wants to open a national championship game with a kickoff return for a touchdown anyway.
They learned that lesson. I'm sure Jet Mac can tell you all about it. Let's see. Which crew is officiating the game? Have we heard who's officiating the game?
I have not, but I don't really pay attention to that because I think all officials suck equally. So
and it's not going to be an SEC crew, so that
Right.
Yeah, that will solve the last problem Ohio State have the officials. Jeremy says everyone touting Bama because of all their individual accolades. Who feels that will be their undoing? And I mean, it's not terrible to have individual accolades because it means you have very good players. So,
But
And-
the guys on the other side also believe, like, I'm pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody, the Alabama guys are getting all the talk. Chris Olave is very, very good, and nobody is talking about him. And Trey Sermon is very, very good, and he's not an All-American. Najee Harris is, and even Justin Fields probably not getting as much attention as he deserves, with Mac Jones being a Heisman finalist as well.
Mm-hmm. And here, in one of the other things that was an interesting point that got brought up at some point in one of the thousands of shows we did in previous weeks was, this is not a normal year where you have the rubber chicken circuit, where you're on the banquet circuit for 2 weeks in the middle of December. The Heisman ceremony, Alabama practice ended, Devontae Smith hopped on Zoom, won the Heisman, and then was back at practice the next. I mean, it was this was not the disruption that it typically is during a normal year. That's something that maybe makes it a little less of a rather than having a lovely and exciting weekend out in Midtown Manhattan, you're back to practice.
For how many years the Heisman winner would never win a national championship if they were playing in the game.
Yeah, or never, very rarely won bowl games. I remember Ty Detmer. I don't think that was a going out too much in Manhattan issue, but I remember Ty Detmer winning the Heisman in 1990 and then losing his bowl games, something like 65-14. So these things can happen. Jeremy makes a good point. Ohio State seems to have faced more adversity than Bama this year. No one has challenged Bama at all this year. I mean, Florida was kind of a little bit interesting. Ole Miss gave them a run for, until Alabama finally broke serve, and that was with 7 minutes left in that game, something like that. I mean, they haven't gotten pushed to the limit quite like Ohio State did against Indiana, but even that was.
But yeah, you never really felt like Alabama was in doubt, or like they felt like they were in doubt, because they know, like, well, Florida's defense is no good, Ole Miss's defense is no good, so no matter what happens to our defense, we will just go and score last if we need to. And then the problem is those teams have to keep serve, and they have to hold serve, and if you can't, then there's so much pressure to score every single time. I think Ohio State's defense being better than Florida and Ole Miss, there isn't that same pressure, but if you can, go ahead and score every single time.
Yeah. Getting Even says, Bama's played 5 extra games. There's a lot of extra snaps. And he's bringing it up in the context of the team buffing the stats. I mean, this is an Ohio State team that is not at end of season, strength. And, this was obviously a big conversation last week with Dabo Swinney and his comments, and what would that be? I think I went into that game assuming that it would be a major issue for Ohio State, that they had not had as many reps, they had not built up the depth, they didn't, if you get down into that second team and third team, like, the players are great, but are they, are they battle tested? Are they ready? And I went into that game thinking it was an issue. It didn't end up being an issue. I'm not sure that really answered the question, because I don't think that's why. I don't think it was, Ohio State was fresher. I don't think that's why they won, I think. But that's still a little bit of a question. Bama's secondary, 75th in the nation, Vinay says. Clemson was 23rd. I mean, that's... yes.
In terms of efficiency,
in what stat?
though,
yes, in terms of what stat is kind of the question.
Alabama can give up a ton of yards because they're up by 40 and teams are just throwing to keep up with them. And in the ACC, nobody can throw the ball because they're all Wake Forest.
Yeah. Yakov says Notre Dame, Brian Kelly didn't try to win. Ball control offense was meant to cover the spread. I mean, they did.
It sure felt like it.
Yeah. That was. Well, I think that felt very much like a Brian Kelly team that was like, well, the path to victory involves the phrase, and then a miracle happens. So, yeah, that's a. I don't think I would take anything from that Notre Dame game at all. Notre Dame was a very, very, very average team this year. Getting a little salty in the chat. It has been a salty week. That has been my
That's all right.
Grammar corrections. It has been a salty
Once
week.
the season is over, everybody's going to go back to being happy again.
I bet. That sounds, yep, in all elements of life.
Yeah.
Kevin Compton says, I feel like this will be a close game. OSU, an incredible team, nothing but respect for them. Feel that OSU could win this game, but Bama squeaks out of Miami with a win. RTA. R. You know what RTA stands for?
Read the alarm?
Read the Roll Tide Roll. Yes.
You said RTA.
I said RTR.
You said RTA. I heard RTA. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Of
So
course I
that's,
know what roll tide roll means.
Yes. So that's
Read the alarm doesn't make any sense.
And
now.
you know what? That's a perfectly viable. That's exactly what Tony and I picked. Tony had 37-35 Alabama, and that's only because I had already picked 38-35 Alabama. These feel like two similar teams, two teams that are not perfect, not terrible.
Yeah.
They have depth. They have great players. Schematically, it's I think they're solid on both sides of the ball for the most part, but there are question marks, and there are some similar question marks. It really does feel like it's going to be a pretty close game.
Yep, and two offenses where they can score on anybody. Defenses can be had. It's if you equate it to the old heavyweight boxing analogy, it's guys who maybe leave themselves open for some shots, and one or two shots could do it.
Michael, yes, we did see your post, and we already addressed it on Sermon and Harris both getting 120 and 2 touchdowns. I could think that's possible. I don't think it's super likely, but I think it's possible. Sam says there's a ridiculous stat that OSU has lost only one game all time when scoring 35. That was the loss to the Clemson Bowl in the 2013 Orange Bowl. Talked about that a whole bunch in the lead up to last game, and they are I think it was 423 wins, one loss, and one tie. They tied SMU in 1978 and lost to Clemson in the 2014
He does bring up a good point.
Orange Bowl.
Alabama is not Clemson.
No.
So if Ohio State scores 35, they win. Based on history.
I mean, it hasn't happened before, therefore it can't possibly happen again.
Correct.
CJ Preach says, who's better, Ole Miss or Ohio State? Well, I guess that depends on what you're asking about. In terms of humidity, Ole Miss.
Oh, man.
Scott says, nice running distance. Thank you. I haven't gotten in a good run this trip. We've been, we do not have, this is not as walkable a community where we are right now as
No.
Notre Dame is.
And the weather is amazing because it's not hot, which is amazing.
Cole Mitro wants to know who's a better dancer, you or me?
You.
Thank you.
I mean, just based on the competitions we've had.
I mean, the frequent.
Based on all of the times I have lost to you in the regulated competitions that we register for on the tournament scene. Yes, you.
Vinay wants to know if we're going to address the Kristen Saban bulletin board material.
I mean, has she said something new, or is it still the same
Well,
thing?
I think it's the same thing.
I mean, Ohio State is here, so
Yeah.
go ahead and use whatever you want in terms of the bulletin board material, because while I don't know that it decides a game, it could be, every little bit helps. And I go back to Urban Meyer in 2006 against Ohio State, putting fake Herb Street quotes in the locker room or in their football facility about how Ohio State was going to kill Florida. There's a reason these coaches study psychology. And so if there's any little edge, and there is a reason why coaches look for any little edge. So if that is one of them, or if Alex Leatherwood saying we'll see if Ohio State wants to play football, that's all available to them.
It's just me. Tim says, if Urban figured out Saban, why couldn't Ryan Day? I mean,
could Urban have figured out Saban with JT Barrett?
Well, I think that's part of the issue. Is you have to have. That was a little bit of kismet for Ohio State, that they had the quarterback who had not put a ton of film out there and also was uniquely well talented. To dump truck, was it Landon Collins, the safety, who he just ran over? I mean, that's just he was a very unique player in a very unusual period of time in Ohio State history. So yeah, that is a I think there's a way this happens for Ohio State that is. Jetmax says it's a fake quote from Leatherwood. I mean, no, it's not. We were on the Zoom.
No, he said it. Yeah.
He said it.
I wrote about it a little bit. I included it in the piece I'm posting later today. It was basically just it's just a football thing. I mean, it wasn't calling anybody out. It's just there's going to be some football, and we'll see if Ohio State is ready for basically the day.
Yeah, and he wants us to go pull the quote. It's on the Buckeye Scoop YouTube channel. Just scroll back a few days. It's on the interviews we did on.
It was transcribed
Tuesday,
by
Wednesday.
the bowl people,
Right.
as well.
What if they're in on it? All right, I think we have gotten all the way through every. Kevin says Waddle will play. He isn't going to be put on the field as a decoy. If he's healthy, he will play and dominate. Sure, but I don't think he's healthy. I mean, I don't think that's the, yes. I don't think anyone's having a question that he's a good player. I think the question is, so he broke his ankle or whatever he did 3 months ago. I don't know that's...
Let's go back to Chris Olave coming back from COVID, where he had to sit, was quarantined for 10 days, and then got to start ramping up. And his legs weren't under him feeling them himself until like Wednesday or Thursday before the game, which was on a Friday or Saturday. So now Jalen Waddle coming back. I don't know how long he's been rehabbing. I mean, obviously he's been rehabbing for a while, but when has he been full speed running? When has he been this? When has he been that? To have 1 week of practice and think you're going to dominate, I don't.
Yeah, we love to compete, and we're going to step up at the challenge, and we're going to see if they want to play football. That's the quote from Alex Leatherwood. Did we say that wasn't the quote from Alex Leatherwood? I don't feel like we did.
I mean,
that's exactly what we reported all week. If you need it explained, we're going to see if they want to play football. That is the portion of that is, and it's not like that's crazy out of context.
No.
The whole context, you just put it up there. We're going to see if they want to play football. Go back and listen to our show, whatever the day it was that he said that. I think we thought, this is not the craziest thing anyone's ever said. This is not a direct challenge to their manhood, but, if people want to take that as such, he did say those words.
Right, and it's not a lot different than Haskell Garrett saying the game is going to be won in the trenches, but it's just different phrasing. But also, Haskell Garrett saying the game is going to be won in the trenches doesn't cause Alabama to say, what did he say?
Yeah.
What did he say about us?
Yeah. Cheryl says, I don't think Waddle's 100% re-injures, could re-injure his ankle and mess up his draft stock. And that's a concern. I mean, do you want to come back? And is he close enough to 100% to come back? That's where I think I am, which is he's probably not close enough to 100% to come back to have it be worth him coming back.
Right, because you got the combine coming up.
Right. If he's going to come out there for 5 plays, is that worth it? I don't know if it is. My expectation again is he's probably not going to be playing. But
if he does, congratulations on a miraculous comeback.
Dave wants to know what happened with Mayan Williams. The question, Mayan Williams, just for those who don't know, Mayan Williams tweeted that he was supposed to be in Miami right now. So there is. I don't want to speculate, but there are global issues happening right now that could lead a person. It's not a. Put it this way, I don't think it's a disciplinary issue that is the reason he's back.
Do your own WebMD on that one, and just he's not here, and it shouldn't be hard to figure out this time of year, this year.
Brad says, do you guys anticipate Paris Johnson getting any reps regardless of injuries? I don't think so. No. I mean, this is not the time of year you're throwing a first-time starter out there unless you absolutely positively have to. And we've had a number of people pointing out that it's getting dark and I'm starting to get invisible with the lack of light. So I think that's our cue to wrap things up for tonight. But again, we'll give you one more plug. Go ahead and subscribe to BuckeyesScoop.com. Do that too.
Well, you messed up now.
I said the right thing. They are supposed to subscribe to BuckeyesScoop.com. They're also supposed to subscribe to YouTube.com/BuckeyesScoop. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button on the channel right now. That will give you notification tomorrow when we go to do our pregame live tomorrow morning. We'll have we may have some special guests tomorrow morning. We'll
see.
We have a lot of talking to do tomorrow, so we may have some. We may bring in some ringers to help us fill the time. But Jason says we hope we both picked Alabama. Well, Jason, you can go to BuckeyesScoop.com, find our staff picks, and I'm Tom. He's Tony. I think you'll like what you see. We
should start the show that way from now on.
Oh man, we should. That's great. We got to start all over again. Okay, guys, ask all your questions.
Get the questions back. Let's go.
Yeah, we will have we'll have a live pregame show tomorrow morning. Monday morning, we will have a live pregame show tomorrow afternoon from the stadium, early afternoon. YouTube.com/BuckeyesScoop. Hit the subscribe button. You'll get a notification as soon as we go live with those. Also, make sure you subscribe to BuckeyesScoop.com. We have an incredible team of insiders. We got 5 of us down here this week. I mean, there's a ton of coverage down there, and so make sure you subscribe there. And all the stuff. There's lots and lots and lots of questions that have been asked in the chat here that have been answered on our Ask the Insiders board that we can answer right here. So if if this is a, if you are the type of person who's asking questions on this type of live show, you are probably the type of person who would enjoy the Ask the Insiders board at BuckeyesScoop.com. Sign up. It'll get you through the workday tomorrow. There you go. It's just me, Tim. Find all subscribe. There you go. We'll see you on the Ask the Insiders board.
Say hi.
Make sure you say, saw you guys in the live stream, subscribed. We will we'll make sure you say hi. But yeah, no, this is you're going to be dying all day Monday waiting for this game to happen. Go ahead and subscribe. Ton of fun chat, ton of great information, lots of great stuff. So really appreciate it. And and we'll have, I think we're set. So we will have, excited to talk to you guys tomorrow too. We have a lot more to talk about.
Yeah, keep bringing the questions, not now, but tomorrow.
Yes.
So thank you all for watching. Thank you guys for listening on the podcast, and we will talk to you guys tomorrow.